Welcome to today's video where I'm going to be featuring the Yucca palette from Natasha Denona. This just launched, and the moment I saw the color story, I was in love. These are definitely my kinds of tones, and I was also really excited to see that this palette had no satin shadows. These shimmers just look so dimensional, so sparkly, and so shiny, and I was like, I knew I had to have this. And also, I'm glad that this is the midi palette and not the larger palette. I really hope that she really just continues this kind of size of palette. So there's 5 shimmer shades, and then there's 2 cream to powders. They're a signature formula for Natasha Denona. So I'm going to create 2 looks with the palette, and I'll give you some of my thoughts at the end of the video. So let's get right into it. At first, taking the Willow shade, and I'm going to pop that onto the inner corner and then the outer corner. And I'm just going to slowly build it up just a little bit and also bring it up into my crease. So next I'm taking that onto the outer corner. Love this tone. Such a beautiful teal. And I'm just gonna slowly start blending that out. I want to wipe off my brush so that I don't have too much product on it. And just feather out the edge here. And then I'm gonna take a Camu and I'm gonna pop that right in the center of the lid. And that is pretty pigmented. It feels maybe a little bit more powdery so far, but hard to tell. And you can see that's also lightening up that teal shade. I'm going to go in with a brush and no tacky primer and into Plantasia. This is such a beautiful chrome brown green duochrome, and I picked it up on this brush. This is a ColourPop E25. I believe it came in a set, unfortunately. And then I misted my brush just a little bit with just some plain water, and I'm going to pop that right into the center and kind of bring it up into the crease. And that is super beautiful. It's pretty sheer and topper-like, which I do enjoy, but I usually do want to see how much I can build the shade up. So here it is on my pinky just swatched, and I'm just going to layer that right in the center. And you can see that just amped it up a bit, so you can kind of really decide on if you want to dial this shade up or if you want to dial it down. And that looks really beautiful, but I would be careful putting on too much because I do feel like it's starting to accentuate my skin texture a little bit, because I think I actually put on too thick of a layer. So definitely be careful with that. Now I do think I want to deepen this up with Calathea, and this is a cream to powder, and I'm just going to pop that onto the inner corner, and that did nothing. Okay, I'm going to switch to a different brush. So I picked it up with a natural brush versus a synthetic, and that definitely worked a little bit better, but I don't know if you saw that, but I feel like it's not really layering. Okay, deepen it up a little bit, but not really as much as I was hoping. I'm going to go back in and just see if it was like a fluke with this brush, because I feel like this matte shadow gets picked up usually fine no matter what it is. I have quite a bit of fallout from trying to get that shadow down. So I don't know yet how I really feel about that matte shadow. And then I'm going to bring Camu underneath my lower lash line, and I'm just tapping it on. There's no eyeshadow primer down here. So this is really good to see just how pigmented it is, despite there really not being anything to help it stick down. And then I'm going in with Willow on the inner portion and just blending this out here. And then I think, use Komorebi as my inner corner highlight. It might be a little too... It actually kind of looks pretty similar to the lid shade. I feel like, can you really tell a difference? Because I feel like I can't. Maybe a little bit. This one has more green in it. I just put on some mascara, and here's the first finished look. Onto the second look, I'm using Ixia, and I'm putting that right into the inner crease. This is a really nice orange. I mean, pigmentation of these mattes so far, not the cream to powder that I tried, but the regular matte is really nice, and I love the tones. I feel like the tones really translate on the lid. And then I'm going in with Citrine next to that. So I'm going to kind of try to use almost as many shades total in between these 2 looks as possible, at least for me. And I'm just going to go back in with a little bit of Ixia, just to bring it back and blend it in with the shade next to it. And I'm just extending that out here. And then what I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take Tipu, and I'm going to extend this outwards and just blend it out here. And then I'm going to deepen this up, but I wanted this to be kind of like a transition shade to the deepening up shade. So that's just going out here a little bit. I picked up flax and I'm going to deepen this outer corner up with that. I'm just kind of packing it on. This is a regular matte. Just kind of popping it in here, and then I'm going to wipe off my brush and blend it into Tipu. I'm just creating a blown out, basically, wing shape with that. And I think I'm going to go in with Macchia, and I'm going to just use my finger. This shade looks just absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to just pop that basically all over the lid, and I'm just kind of swiping it and then tapping it into my lid and just going back a little bit more, and that looks so pretty, so dimensional. Bringing down a flax underneath my lower lash line, and then I'm going to take Ixia on the rest of my lower lash line. Here's a second finished look. So upon first impression with the palette, I really enjoy the mattes. I love the tones. I love the color story. Why else would I have bought this palette? I do have to test out this Calathea Cream to Powder Deeper Matte Shadow. I feel like it definitely gave depth, but I was a little bit surprised that I almost didn't immediately see it. I think usually you can kind of almost immediately see when you deepen something up and you layer over another matte shadow. So I didn't swatch this palette before I used it, and now that I've swatched it, I see that this shade that is Cream to Powder just swatches very, very lightly, like very lightly, and that means that it will be buildable, which is a good or bad thing given your preference. Personally, I wish it was deeper than that. There are some deeper mattes in the Metropolis palette that are Cream to Powder, and they take a little bit of building up, but they definitely pack a bit more of a punch than this shade right here, so I'm a little confused by that one. And then I do want to mention that the other Cream to Powder shadow, which is this one right here, it actually feels different and it's super pigmented, so it is still Cream to Powder, but it honestly feels really thick and almost waxy, which is really interesting for a matte shadow, so I definitely have to try this one out. This is totally just a first impressions on this palette, but I do feel like I need to test these two shades some more. Now, the shimmers, absolutely spectacular and just totally my preference, and that is also why I decided to get this palette, because if there had been more shimmers and not all of them had been sparkly, I'm not really sure if I would have felt like this palette was worth it to me. That being said, there is this shade right here, and this one is not as shiny. It's a little bit stiffer, and it is a little bit more of a light, just metallic shadow. It looks really nice and smooth, but of course I really wanted to get my grubby little fingers into some of these more sparkly shadows. I did not use this shade right here. I do think that these two are pretty similar, and I think when these two are paired with kind of same mattes, I feel like the difference between them is very, very small, even though they look like they might be pretty different. So let me just swatch this one. This one is just so dimensional. This one does have a little bit more texture to it. And then let me swatch Komorebi. So here's what they look like. I mean, you can tell this one has like a brownish base to it, but like I said, if you pair this one with the browns, you might get like a similar effect. And you can see this one's a little bit more opaque versus this one's like a topper, so the base will affect this shade. So I don't know, I wish they were maybe a little bit more different, especially because just using them this way, they look so similar. I can see that this one's less dimensional and it's lighter, but I don't know if it's warranted to have both of these in here. I'm excited to use this some more. Natasha Denona makes some really beautiful matte shadows that I've always very much enjoyed. So I'm going to play with this palette some more. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, because I'm definitely planning on doing a reel with this palette, maybe using the shimmer shadow that I didn't use in this video. Let me know your thoughts. Did you pick this palette up and what you think of it? I would love to know. And that's everything for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.